Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing today?
Hello.
Everybody good? Yeah, everybody unmute so we can say hi.
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 Nice to see you. I see familiar faces, and I think there's some new people here too. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dr. Judy Ann Kellaway, the Associate Dean for Admissions and Outreach here at the Long School of Mission. And you're at a monthly club pre-med chat. I hope we'll get a lot of questions answered for you today. I have a list of what you submitted. And we'll get going here in just a minute. I want you to say hi to Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa. Thank you. So Vanessa helps us, and she may duck out in a bit, but today, so anyway, thank you, Vanessa, for being here. Thank you for setting us all up. She's part of the awesome A team, and always need her help. So we'll get started, okay? No formal presentations today, just questions and answers. I have the chat pulled up, and and I have some topics that other topics that we can talk about, of course, but this is your hour. So be thinking about what you want to ask. If you send me a private chat, I'll try to remember not to say your name, but just pose your question and then try to gather some answers. A lot of times when we do this, your experiences really help each other. So please feel free to, and I might ask along the way if y'all have any ideas in answering some questions that pop up. Okay, so we will get going. A lot of the questions revolve around a reapplication. And I want to remind, this is another reminder too. I want to remind you there's several ways. And we talked about at least 3 situations where a person might have applied and need to apply again. So this reminds me to tell you that Vanessa has posted the last web chat that we did that was an applicant and re-applicant workshop. So we covered a lot of ground. We looked at many, if not all, of the parts of the application and talked about making a strong application or a stronger re-application. So you can play me double speed or triple speed so you don't have to sit through that hour again, but at least sort of see the PowerPoint and some tips there. Remember, one of the questions is what went wrong? It was my second time to apply and got interviews, and I want to figure out what went wrong not to be accepted. So remember, there are people, did I tell you this story that everybody's very memorable. I have many memorable people, but in this instance, I remember a wonderful medical student who he hit the ground running. He was just wonderful. And he was accepted to medical school on his 7th try, 7th. So, did he, 7th. So he was trying, he couldn't have been making, maybe the first couple of times he was making strides and great improvements, but he's a great example. Sometimes it's just, the numbers are so competitive, sometimes it's the metrics, and sometimes it can be the timing of the application. But our school joins many others in reviewing applications for a long time, all throughout the season. So sometimes it's just you have to gather everything together, keep on doing good things so that you have new things to offer in the next application, and you just keep trying. Okay, so it really does not mean that something went wrong. Okay. We are not doing file reviews. It's difficult. But if you have a question like that, okay, like what went wrong, if I can address it briefly in an email, I'll try to do that. But honestly looking at your resources and the YouTube videos and talking this evening, you should have some good ideas about what you need to do if you are a re-applicant. Okay. Anything, and I'm watching the chat, so anything that you want to expand on or ask, start a new topic, then we sure can. Another question was, should I wait a year to reapply? There was another question related to that about master's programs, and do we see the grades? Sometimes that is a good idea to wait a year. Sometimes it's a good idea. You can then have this full gap year where maybe you're working in a healthcare arena or working in service for an extended period of time. And that sometimes these experiences in a gap year are just a tremendous addition to a person's application. And I don't know if you realize how much you can change and how much better a person can look simply by holding down a job for a year, working it as a research coordinator or a scribe. We really see most of the time a lot of improvement, maturity, just ability to communicate about what you're doing is excellent. So sometimes I do think skipping a cycle is a good thing to do. But you have to look as a re-applicant, you have to look and see, what that looks like for you and your life. Do you get anxious? Does anybody know this feeling like, it didn't happen or maybe some of you are on wait lists here and there and we just get in a hurry, we just want it to happen. And I think that's just an extension of the passion and the enthusiasm for us. And for each individual, and so people get in a real hurry. And sometimes people even mention, I'm X years old now, like that's a bad thing. And it's, you should just keep doing good work, see if you can accumulate some good things to add. So don't try to tuck that anxiety away about needing to like hurry up and make this happen. Try to be patient with the whole thing. So I do think that that's a good idea, or in general, but you have to look at your individual path. Everybody's path, honestly, everybody's path is very different. A related question I mentioned was looking at those improved grades, maybe in a graduate program. You're in a master's program you might have even applied the second time or for a repeat application, made a repeat application, and now you're in the program. Well, we're not going to see those grades, right? Because you're acing everything and rocking along, making A's now in a science master's program, which is an excellent thing. But we're not going to. You can tell us about it, but people aren't going to see that. So that needle on the metrics part is it may not show if you're applying the very next cycle. So that might be another good reason to wait. That's a little bit different. Okay, so let's go to this one then. Let's do Coles and then Deja. Do schools view clinical research as patient experience? I think yes. When you are learning to give informed consent, if you're the research coordinator or something like that, if you take vitals, if you draw blood, if you do checklists and patient intake sorts of things, you're interviewing patients. I think all of those things are patient experiences. I think that would go well in a healthcare position, healthcare category on your personal biography in the application. There is a way, I believe, you all know this better than I, because you're looking at those applications. I think in AMCAS, I get this question frequently. It comes up. Does it count as clinical experience? So I'm not sure what people mean by that. So you need to check your handbook. So TMDSAS does not categorize. We don't ask you to check mark that this is clinical. So anything related to healthcare is the category. Okay, volunteering, the clinical parts of research, patient consent, and triage and things like that. Those are all healthcare experiences. So clinical, I am told, or as I understand it, is hands-on, right? So maybe that means you're helping out with blood draws, or even checking vital signs and that kind of thing. Or maybe you're a patient care technician. Very high value, by the way, right? Everybody I know of really values that sort of work. Nursing, patient care technician, you're just right there with patients. So that would be clinical. Let me unhide this so I can see. So I think that, so remember about repeating, right? You can't, if you're going to repeat an experience, it has to be a robust enough experience to put into places. Okay. Soon, I have to check those updates. We didn't talk about it today at our meeting, but soon you'll be able to check a couple of things. Maybe this is a primary category, but it also hits, these other categories also. You don't want to ever just repeat exactly the same thing in more than one category. If you're doing research and there's patient care involved there, like we just talked about, you could put that in research, and your description is going to focus on the research aspects. Then you could repeat that. If you're spending 2 or 3 days in the clinic doing patient related things, you could go ahead and put that under healthcare separately, but with a different descriptor, right? You understand what I mean? Okay. So considering, yes, Cole, that's a very important responsibility, isn't it? To consent people. And I know in a study, particularly, you'll go through a script, but that's preparing you for when you're a physician and preparing your patients with information, informed consent for anything that you're going to do for them, with them, medicine, surgery, procedures, all kinds of things. Okay. So that's a great experience. So yes, see, I'm sorry, I need to shorten my answers so that we can get more questions answered. Sorry, how does view multiple? So I and many, if not all, of our committee members and lots of committee members all over the country view that as determination, passion, determination. I am going to get this. I am going to get this done. And there are, of course, lots of people who are matriculated into medical schools every year with one MCAT, and there are many more than a few who have done numerous MCATs. Our former vice dean for our undergraduate medical education office here kept her 5 MCAT reports taped to her cabinet in the office so that she could show people. I did it 5 times. I stuck with it. I'm in the game now. So sometimes it's just determination. So I think it shows determination and passion, and I'm going to try better. Now, when you're not moving your number needle, I would advise you to please look what you're doing, look at some of our tips from the pros MCATs, and do something differently, because you want to be able to, what I see a lot is people trying again, and then going, okay, gosh, I have to do something. And by that 3rd time, they're really, they're making some progress there. The data show that people retaking the MCAT often, more often than not, improve their score. So let's see. So the Casper, good question. Berkeley is asking about the Casper. Is it more of a screen to decide about interview invitations? Does it go into admissions decisions as well? We use it very little in screening decisions. Okay, so we will, we don't screen or use it in a detrimental way for later decisions. We don't screen out, we don't use it to screen out people at all, because we don't have solid information that tells us, oh gosh, this score, this number here just is a deal breaker. We don't have that kind of information. Nope. I don't know that anybody does. Maybe people do for their particular campuses, okay? We absolutely do not, and could see somebody in a range of scores who comes to medical school and just does so well, right? So, we're trying our best to not grab at, but that's a bad word. We're trying to gather some information, and we use tools so that we can find out about you, but often people, there are different measures when you get to medical school. So in the admissions process, we do the best that we can. So we don't use it to screen out. It is used when there are sort of, people in the middle there. It helps us move in a positive direction for the deliberations about that person quite often. And so we use it in what's called an impressionistic way. It doesn't go into a formula or any kind of calculation. Our committee actually, I think we're a little unique in this. We don't distill people down into a number. We do have a committee evaluation number, but that goes, we just have so many numbers and things that we put together. But probably if you look at our database, the most important thing to us is a little statement about your journey. And so we pick out things unique about everyone and the things that you're doing. And that sometimes makes the difference for us. We do, when people excel on the Casper, we do screen in those people who might not have made it. Maybe the other parameters that we look at, metrics or hours and experiences, aren't quite up to what we thought might earn an interview. But when people excel on the Casper, we got to see this person who's like excelling in personal attributes. So we will invite those people to for an interview. So the inclusion of hobbies. Oh yeah, so Miranda, that happens a lot, that people will pick something that they do in their spare time under it's extracurricular leisure time. I'm not sure I like how we entitle that section on extracurricular, and then it says hobbies or leisure time activities. And a lot of you have things that are very meaningful to you. Journaling, reading, TED Talks, courses, learning, teaching yourself things. So that's a valuable section that I tell you all the time. Do not neglect that section. It's not just a catch-all. It's not just for anything left over. It's where you put things that are important to you. So absolutely, you could tag one of those as most meaningful. How much clinical experience, anything you want me to elaborate on? I'm a good elaborator. So just say, could you elaborate on that? I'm trying to do short answers so we get through some of these. How much clinical experience? This is a very good question, Luis. And I'm not sure that I'll try to do it concisely. Is it preferred to be doing clinical experiences during your gap year? So I don't know that anyone can quantify what it takes to have great preparation in healthcare or / clinical experience. Okay. I don't advise this. I say this all the time. I don't advise this, but if you had a day of shadowing and it was phenomenal and you learned so much, you learned about doctor-patient communication, confidentiality, you saw trust happening, you saw a very difficult interaction between a doctor and a patient for one reason or the other, and you just went, wow, this day was so awesome. Maybe that's enough to help you understand so much about what it takes to be a physician and what it's going to be like. Okay. So I don't advise 8 hours. I think every additional experience that you have and time spent augments that. Like I said, people come back from a year of scribing and wow, your maturity, your ability to communicate in this, with medical nuance is very much strengthened often. So I can't tell you what it takes. Okay. But you know what it does take? What I said, this is what I say 16 times in every presentation, don't I? Is reflection. So you might have 1,000 hours in healthcare, but if you're just logging it and checking it, maybe you haven't sat down to think of the meaning in that and all of the things you can think to identify that it has given you. Okay. If you wanted to know average, this comes from Table Talk. We're at a career fair trying to, we were asked this. I think my partner was from A&M, and we said, well, what do you think is average? Because somebody just asked us, and we both went like this, I don't know. But we both said, well, what do you think? Maybe 150, 250. So we sort of landed in the 150 to 250 hour for healthcare and community service as an average of what we see. Okay. And we see much less and we see much more. Okay. And that's why long school of medicine and some others, I'm sure, don't have a minimum requirement. There are schools with minimums. Okay. So, and in your virtual shoebox where you're putting all this information, you're going to put that kind of information if some school does have a requirement for research or a requirement for a minimum number of hours. So I hope that helped. And the next one is for Mcat Retakers. No, I don't think that that's a silly question. I think for Mcat, to start with, you want to get yourself in the average ranges. You want to open as many opportunities for yourself as possible. So a point, maybe a point does it, maybe maybe you need a little bit more. You want to get, if you're a little below average and now you get, and you know what average is, right? 512, just count on 512 in current times for the national average and for Texas averages. So, if you're a little below that and 3 points gets you up in the average area, then that might be enough. Our 2 videos about people improving their scores, tips from the pros, those are all the people presenting there all improved their scores by 10 points or more. And we see it, they're not that unique. We see it done all the time. So just watch your study methods and you can do that. I mean, we've seen people go from a 502 to a 512, a 504 to a 514, 10 points and more we've seen, and that can make a huge difference. I think you all tell me if you think this is true. I think the whole MCAT thing, especially, for that first time takers, we underestimate it. We underestimate what the test is asking and go, oh, we get in there and then we come out like sweating, but mostly glad that it's over. And then we get our score a month later, and then we say, and I say we, because I've been there and done that. Then we say, oh man, yeah, I see. Okay. It's not what I thought at all. And I think a lot of people with some experience in the MCAT area would agree with that. So don't underestimate the test. spend as much time as you can. It's become such an obstacle. So don't remember, watch that other video, several others, for the encouragement part of this, the cheerleader I want to be for you. Do not let it get in your head. Any baseball players out there, any soccer, volleyball, if you let your opponents, if you let those parts of that game get in your head, what does that do? You're done. You're done, right? So you don't let that get in your head, and stay very positive. You stay very positive about that, right? Okay, let's see. So not a silly question at all. So can you retake Casper? Casper is still, they have made some changes, Sophie. And now they are reporting to people their scores. If you feel like you're better prepared, and that's another one, I don't think it requires preparation like the Mcat, but it's not just to go in, see who you are, it's not a personality quiz like Facebook or, something. It's something that you can prepare for. So I think you should spend time. I think you can take it once per cycle. So you can redo it in the next cycle. And did we talk about preview in that last application? So preview, do you want to say something? You want to say more about Casper? Did you want to ask more about Casper, Sophie?
No, sorry, I was just moving my hand in a funny way.
Okay, that's good. So you're good with that, right? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. I didn't know if we were supposed to retake it or if it was just a thing we did one time.
Yeah. I don't know if you'd have to check their website. I think if somebody took a test, took a Casper used the tool for last cycle, I'm not sure if they're going to give it to us for this cycle. I think you'd have to process it maybe, and maybe pay a fee for them to forward us the thing, or they might even just require the new test. I don't know the answer to that question. Like, what if you took it last year and you did very well, and they tell you you're in the top quartile, maybe you would want to be okay with that score. Then I don't know how that works.
Okay. Great. I'll look also. I'm reapplying next cycle. And so I know it also might be radically a changed exam by then with more data. So I'll check back in.
Okay. Yeah. And I'd love to know what you find out. And maybe we'll remember to put it in the chat under the recording on the channel, So the biggest mistake, I think, the biggest mistake that re-applicants can make is presenting almost exactly the same thing to us. Okay. Now I've seen plenty of people who come back with a new application, and they have changed every text entry for all of those items in the personal biography. And now you see meaning and reflection and value in what they're describing in those, for every activity. That looks great. So the activity itself, those activities themselves aren't changing that much, but what you give us about that has changed. So I think that's the biggest mistake. And then I think the other maybe biggest mistake could be that people are sending in another application with the same metrics. So I think we should all recognize that there, of course, is a range of Mcat scores that get into medical school. But again, you want as many opportunities for open doors as possible. And sometimes people are submitting their application early, and they intend to take that Mcat later. And we see that there's another Mcat planned for down the road. All right, let's see. I'm losing track. Yeah, so I love this question too. Michelle asks, is it seen as a disadvantage if an applicant lacks research experience but has tons of clinical experience? So let's do that, or vice versa, or There's smaller healthcare and tons of community service. Okay, so first of all, COVID is going to be seen in medical school applications and all applications to all, graduate programs and things for years to come. Okay. So first of all, there's that. And next is we see, I don't think that we're the only school that looks at it this way. Okay. If you're going to have lots of strength in research and not so much in your clinical experiences, maybe that's going to be the way you're an excellent, phenomenal doctor in the end, is discovery and scientific discovery and doing clinical trials and helping patients in a grand way like that. Maybe that's going to be your thing. Okay. Maybe we see, I wouldn't recommend doing no healthcare experience, but and for us and for many schools, research would not be a deal breaker. Okay. If there was no research at all, it's not a deal breaker, but we do frequently see people with like an imbalance, but I don't mean that to sound like a negative word. If we see discrepancies in the amount of hours or time that people are spending in certain experiences, we understand that those are the opportunities that you have for right now. Or, maybe community service is your thing. Maybe you have less in healthcare and just tons of being out there, advocating, doing social justice, doing community service. Maybe that's your thing. Maybe that's how you're going to be an excellent physician. I think I said in the last thing, back in the day, I couldn't think of too many ways that we, even now reflecting back 20 something years ago, there were several kinds of physician that you could be. Now it's just endless. It's just endless. And you will go to medical school and get that degree, pursue a specialty, but at the same time, you could have all kinds of expertise developing in these various areas, like we just mentioned. I think most schools will take an MCAT that's 5 years old. Okay. Beyond that, the rationale, I think, for having a deadline at all, or a cutoff rather, is that you really need to have really good scientific acumen. You really need to be strong in science. Okay. And that relates, I might go there. Next. So I think that's why. That's the rationale for saying we need a more current score. Did research. Yes, thank you, Brandon, for adding that. Would be beneficial to shadow other doctors. Gosh, so I would say, most scribing experiences are jobs. You're trained, you've got a lot of responsibility on the team. It's healthcare. It's probably the closest thing to being a physician down the road as you can get, with that responsibility and training and all that you do. So I'm not sure that you would need to see, I'm not sure that we would need to see variety in that. I think you're going to see enough variety in your day-to-day work. Okay. That being said, if you have the opportunity to shadow somebody else or scribe for somebody else or something like that to enrich your background of experiences, that's a good thing, of course. Okay. But I don't know that you need to seek that out. Okay, thank you. We decided Casper's only good for one cycle, but they have made some improvements. So I'm not sure if that was, did I tell you about the improvements? They've lowered the cost, it's a bundled fee now. I think you do one fee for 8 to 10 schools. And then they did a big change. They did several big changes. There are 8 bullet points that I'm not going to be able to remember for you, but you can go to the website and and find their website or Google it, but they made some improvements in the summer of 2020. Originally, they had data to show that the impact on applicants taking the test from a variety of different demographics was wider than they wanted it to be. So they're minimizing those differences as we talk about students who are first generation or underrepresented in medicine and those demographics. They are closing that gap, and they did a big push in the summer of 2020 to redo the exam now, or there are some video responses, for example, that really show we don't see gaps there. So they're very attuned to that. Those were some improvements along with the other 7 bullet points. Let's see what else for re-applicants. You compare. Yes, so absolutely for re-applicants, we see the old application, the former applications, any of them, and current. And I think looking at the last month's workshop and listening to some things here and there, you would be able to improve your application, I think. So one of the questions is my personal statement, do I need to start over as a re-applicant? And I would say, you've heard me say the answer is what? Yes, you do. So, but you don't have to start completely over. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you do need to change it up. Look at your main themes in there, your main messages. I bet you have, 3 to 5 main messages in your personal statements. Those don't have to change. You just need to rework it. Okay. And it influences the admissions decisions because we want to see improvement. We want to see that you've grown in a year. We're only going to see that if you think about it and find ways to tell us about that. That's the reflection piece, right? Prerequisites don't go away, so if you were in school 10 years ago and that's when you did your prereqs, they don't expire. Okay. Now, I'm not sure how 10-year-old coursework helps you on your MCAT, right? So you might need to do some refreshing there. I think I fell into that category because I was applying 10 years after to my bachelor's degree. So let's see, upward trend is very important. We see, downward trend is not the greatest, okay? But when we see a blip in a certain semester or certain year, we usually are then in your application reading about some obstacles and challenges that you fought through, okay? So we see that, and then we appreciate an upward trend. And that happens all the time. I'm going to mention Fresh Start again. If anybody is not even close to 10 years out, but Fresh Start is a thing where you can wipe out grades that are 10 years ago. You can leave the other 3 years there, or 2 or 1. But if that's sort of your situation, I'd be happy to tell you more. So just email me. Particular types prefer, I don't think so. I think this is my chance to say one of my mottos: all good things are good. There are things that are higher value than others. So when you have research and then maybe you've done a presentation, or maybe you're doing research, you garnered an award for that on your undergrad campus, or you're the study coordinator now, they've elevated you on the team or given you more responsibility. All of those things add value to any clinical experience. Okay. A lot of people have courses that required some research. You did it for a semester, you got the most out of it that you could. Those are all good things. I hope that helped. If I need to clarify or add, just let me know. Oh, I think that shadowing the same physician more than once is just fine, Berkeley. I think that that's a perfectly fine thing to do. Okay. I think, whenever I had people shadowing me more often in a previous place, I always suggested that they go see some other specialties because ophthalmology is very specific. We're examining like a very small part of the body. And so I think that if you're doing something that is very narrow in scope, you should try to seek other experiences, okay, to help you learn about other things. Derm, I think sometimes, some of the specialty areas are that way. But certainly wouldn't be a deal breaker. Let's see. Here we are. Non-traditional. So we love academic fresh start. And it's very interesting. I think the message is getting out there. I hope I'm contributing to the message. If you went 3 or 4 years back, I think in our applicant pool, we could identify a couple of people who did fresh start. And now this cycle, I think I saw 4 or 5 people, one of whom had a recent not all fresh start people are re-applicants, but one was a re-applicant and had gotten the message about fresh start and was able to just wipe out a lot of stutter in the beginning, glitches in the beginning, and show the strength of that rising trend. So many of us, my story, right? My first semester of college, 3 C's and 2 withdrawals because I was going to make F's in those. I did not know, and it wasn't because I was partying. It was, I didn't know how to do it. So a lot of us are like that, it just takes a while to learn how to do it. So it is viewed well. Again, passion, determination, resilience. I think that's what that says about a person who's reapplying and continuing to show, present applications. Multiple jobs. We see, okay, so we do see your work history. That's in the personal biography. We love work. We think, there are a few of us who think maybe everybody should finish school, like finish undergrad and go out and work. Go do Walmart for a couple years, or better yet, maybe be at the drive-through in fast food. Very nice personal attributes developing in those scenarios, right? Customer service. You got my order all wrong, managing people who are angry, and like my husband who drives out and doesn't get the order's not right, he's learning patience too. Anyway, I think that those jobs are highly regarded, and it doesn't, so if you're paid for something that you're doing, you should put it in the work experience, period. So if you're doing something, I think city year, or other jobs that you do that are in a service area, that's the place that you can duplicate. List it under community service, but make sure we know it was a job, because then we'll recognize responsibility and things like that. Try to do your little blurbs, your 350 characters, try to make them different. Okay. Where am I now? And Lakeisha, if there's more to your question, don't hesitate to unmute. Anybody can unmute too. If you have sharing experience with the same hospital, different specialties, how do you document? Okay, so this brings up a very good point. Molly, is that close? Where are you? Is that close?
Yes, Molly, yes.
Oh, Molly, okay, good, yes, thank you. Hi. Okay, so that's a very good thing. That's a very good question. Sometimes your experiences are here and there. You want to present it as cohesively as possible. So when I see an application that has 6 hours here, 12 hours there, 4 hours in this, and usually most often it's healthcare and community service, I would really advise you, I'm like, dang, you know, I wish that they had listened to a recording or gone on the YouTube channel or something to hear. I would rather see that lumped together, you know. I think it presents in a more cohesive way. You can just entitle it miscellaneous clinical experience, miscellaneous apprenticing or shadowing, and then tell about what you learned. And in the description, you can put what specialties were involved and that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great advice. Because yeah, I was kind of confused because I shadowed at one hospital with 4 different specialties, and I have like almost 20 to 25 hours each specialty per month. So that's why I'm like, those are less hours if I do like separate, and it can get confusing, and I don't want to like post kind of my application saying that,
Yes.
oh, I've done like 4 different shadowing experience, but it's really one hospital. So
Yes.
I was lucky enough to get that chance. That's why.
Very good. So another good point that you make is you want to categorize it, whichever way you do it. You want the categorization to make sense for your reader. You want a happy, easy read, you know. So if hospital, you know, the title of your activity then could be hospital shadowing or hospital apprenticing. I don't know if other people appreciate the word apprentice, but you know, my preference. But just say, you know, hospital, then we know that it's all connected to, that's how you're connecting them together. I think that's great. And simply to put miscellaneous, if they are scattered about, I think is fine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. How do we view virtual shadowing? So COVID and your COVID semesters and your COVID experiences are going to be with us for a long time, and we realize that. On our website, Vanessa makes sure that she always puts up the most current iteration of our COVID document. It's alternative activities in a time of COVID. So that first page, those are things that we thought up that would maybe be meaningful substitutes when your activities were canceled, and now when they're just beginning to open up. I think depending on your locale, you could still be in an area where it's difficult to obtain experiences. The second page is things we have actually seen in applications, from the creative ideas of the applicants, you know, of you, creative pre-meds, and what you have come up with to serve and to learn about healthcare. So if you don't know that document, you can find it on our website. So that's a good question, Cole. Almost all, not all, but almost all medical schools across the country will be doing virtual interviews. We realize that as soon as we say that, you say, oh man, you know, but not to worry, because all of us who are doing the interview portion, we're going to have some campus type activity. So we don't know, I don't know the details yet and exactly how it's going to work. We're going to figure that out pretty soon. But we will be doing virtual interviews, our committee, many others. The interviewer feedback is that and from students as well, from applicants as well, is we don't think we missed out on a lot. Okay, for that interview, I'm going to sit with you in a room for 20 to 30 minutes. I get a good, you know, having prepared myself, reading your application. We don't feel like there were any big things that we missed. We felt like we could connect with people, and the applicants felt the same way. What we'll add this year and the logistics. So it saved pre-meds applicants thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And now you don't have to kind of decide, am I going to, in Texas, right? We've got 13 schools, or some, I have to stop and count all the time, but 13 at least now. And, you know, to go from one side of Texas or the other, the single trip could cost you $1,000. And, you know, Lubbock is a place everybody ought to see, but you got to like save up for the hotel room and everything, because you might not be able to get in and out in a day. Anyway, we're all going to arrange things so that people can visit our campuses and do some virtual visits as well. And we're bringing back our famous, we have a famous best interview day lunch on the interview trail. We'll just do it asynchronously for the people that we're interviewing. So can a job count also as community service? Absolutely. Absolutely. Zachariah, it absolutely can count. And that's why I say listed in community service also, and then tell us that it was employment. Credit, no credit. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I'm so glad you asked, Carolina, about credit, no credit. We have all been very flexible. I would watch the TMDSAS website as well as each individual school's websites for what's acceptable. For the last couple of years, our admissions committee was very, very flexible about accepting pass fail and credit, no credit, and things like that. So all combinations of new grading systems because of the pandemic. So those, you know, if you're not applying for 2 years, but you took those grading, you have those grading systems on a transcript from COVID semesters, of course we're going to count them. We're not going to make a bunch of applicants redo everything, okay? If you have academic strength, it will show in other ways. Okay, it'll show in your overall GPA. We'll see it semester by semester. We'll see it in your MCAT. Okay, so yes, and our committee, I'm pretty sure our committee is going to be very flexible about this, these things also. If there are any changes, we'll post them on the on our website. EMT, EMT is a valuable experience. I'm not sure I'm understanding the difference. You want to put it in work and healthcare, right? Is that right, Miranda? So we had to have clinical observation hours. So I would not, I think you could put it under healthcare, and undoubtedly, I'm not sure where, I'm not sure where you are. So let me know if this answers your question yet, but I would keep it in healthcare and repeat it in the work section. And not sure I would carry out, take out the hours that were education and training. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm
here. Oh, hi, Miranda, there you are.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to have an abundance of hours. Does that, but I don't think you need to, I think you need to state in the text box that you were trained to do this, and that you could say in these, you know, in this 100 hours, 20 hours was training or whatever it was, you know, and certification and that kind of thing. Okay.
Okay, but not listed as like a observation, listed more as a healthcare training.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm glad. So Julissa, thank you for asking. I was going to come back to those community college hours that I mentioned before. And the quick answer, Berkeley, no, there hasn't been much weight pool movement yet. We're talking about that more in just a second. So prerequisites. So I don't know that it's right for us. We need to look at some data, and I don't know what the data say. I don't know what studies would say. We want you to have rigorous experience, rigorous academic experience in the sciences. Okay. I think some places, some people or places might assume that a community college science course is not as rigorous a preparation as at a four-year other sort of campus. Okay, I think that assumption, that stereotype even might be out there, and I don't know that if that's I don't know if it's fair for us to do that. Okay, more so we try not to. More and more of our applicants every year send in an application with community college hours. It's convenient. They're offered at convenient times. It's much more economical for applicants who are spending like loads of money anyway in all kinds of ways. Oh my gosh. I was shocked. We looked up MCAT prep and just were shocked at how much you all spend on that, you know. Anyway, where was I? Where am I? Oh, community college hours. So make the most of that course, make it a rigorous experience, make sure it's preparing you for the MCAT, and make sure that that is preparing you for the work you have to do for MCAT. Okay. And if you're so a side notion would also be that if you're making a C in some of the courses that might prepare you for the MCAT, that's maybe when you should retake it, not for the little bit it's going to move the GPA, but for the knowledge that you're going to carry into the MCAT. Okay. Does your so it's so interesting that you asked that, because we had a so we look at academic preparation for medical school in maybe I could list 30 ways. If we pulled up our document that our committee looks at, we look at every semester, we look at every course in your transcript. We do look, of course, at the university. We look at majors, we look at minors, we look at honors courses. What else do we look at, Vanessa? We look at certifications. We look at all of that to look at preparedness and rigor. Okay, so we don't say this, okay, this is a and we always kind of look at things in a positive. I really do think that our school, and I'm sure many others, looks at this we take a positive approach. Okay, so if we see a GPA that's a little bit lower, we might say, oh gosh, they're in an engineering program, or they're at what might be considered a competitive school. They were working while they put themselves through school, so they were working 20 hours a week every semester. We look at all of the ins and outs, so it's not just the GPA at a certain school. It's your GPA. Of course, we see your school, we see your major, we see the work you've done and all that stuff. Okay, so we look at it in a broad way. So official campus visits, we really have to separate that. We really have to separate that because of the fact that some, especially now in the last two virtual cycles, some people would not be able to come to campus. Okay, and I think that there are people in the last cycle who will have chosen their medical school without a physical visit to the campus, which doesn't seem right, does it? But you all are spending tons of money in many ways, and sometimes that's just the necessity, is that you find out all the information and connect as best you can without a campus visit. So we realize that some people won't be able to do that. That does not consider, it doesn't weigh into admissions decision. We can't even really predict, because some people like to visit all the campuses and look around and see what's there, and other people just cannot. So it's data that is hard to figure out. Okay, what else? Oh, it's 6:02. Anything else? What's a personal statement we talked about? Oh, interview prep. So maybe the next one needs to be interviewing so that you'll be ready. The last video might be for Club PreMed. That presentation and discussion might be about a year old now. Maybe that's another one. People, somebody was asking on the submitted questions, how do I prepare myself for interviews? And I think you absolutely need preparation, and there are lots of great presentations and advice out there. And we have at least one of those videos on the channel for you on the YouTube channel. So that was the only thing I think that didn't get answered. I think we did it. Anything else before we go? Unmute. Any other?
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
you.
Okay,
Thank
you're
you.
very welcome. It was wonderful to see you
Thank you,
all.
Dr.
you.
Calloway.
You're very welcome.
you.
Come back. We'll see you the next time. Okay.
Dr.
Thank
Calloway.
See you next
Bye.
time. Take care. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Hope it helped. See you later. Bye.
Bye bye.